continue. Well, it asked me at least. All right, so we are recording now.
Okay, cool.
Hi, everyone. Tonight, it's my great pleasure to have with me Professor Catherine Liu from the Department of Film and Media Studies in the School of Humanities here at UCI. Welcome, Catherine. Good to see you. So, Catherine, what are you going to cook for us tonight?
So I'm going to make two dishes. I prepped one already. One is, that one is a spare rib soup, one of my grandmother's recipes. And then what I'm going to cook right now and saute live for you guys is green pea tofu beef saute. And then we're going to have that over rice. And this is a very comforting dish. And it's also really great when you want to have lots of protein, you want your greens, your roughage, and everything in one in one dish, in one bowl. It's not very sophisticated Chinese food, but it's really comforting food, and it nourishes you. And my son loved this dish, and I loved this dish as a graduate student because it was super cheap, super easy to make, but very Chinese.
Good.
The other thing is that the oil is heating up now, so I'm going to start. And I've used canola oil, and I'm going to add, as the oil gets hot, the garlic. And so the garlic now is heating up, and my next step is that I'm going to add the beef, ground beef, which I've already marinated in soy sauce. And the thing that I was going to say was, this is a Chinese dish that you can make when you live in an area with no Chinese supermarkets.
Right.
It's a little loud, and I'm going to saute the beef now and not talk so much. I'll talk later.
That's great. So how long did you marinate the beef in the soya sauce?
What?
How long did you marinate the beef?
Saute the beef until it browns, but not completely. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to add the tofu, which I've cubed already.
Mm-hmm.
And at this stage, I'm going to add more soy sauce.
Wow.
So what I was going to say was, this is the kind of Chinese dish you can make when you live in an area with no Chinese grocery stores, and you're really jonesing for something Chinese. You can always get organic firm tofu. You can always get ground beef, and you can always get frozen peas. And if you want to be healthy, I made this with organic beef, organic tofu, and organic frozen peas. So now I've got this in a nice sort of soupy, brothy state, and the beef is still not completely cooked yet. So I'm going to finish it with the peas. And what I was going to say too is that this is a dish that is not spicy. So if you like Chinese food, but you don't want spicy, this is delicious to have. And it's more Cantonese. All my food, Annalisa, is about, all the food that I cook that's Chinese is about memories. And one of the really great memories I have about eating this dish is going to Chinatown after Chinese school and getting green peas and beef over rice. And I had this dream that I was going to live in New York City, eat green peas and beef over rice, and live in a tiny apartment and read books. And that was going to be my heaven.
Wonderful.
This is what I thought my future would be as like when I was 11. And so, of course, things didn't quite turn out that way, but I did go to graduate school in New York. And then, of course, it's getting cooked. It's cooking now to a really nice texture because the peas are melting and creating this kind of nice moisture in the dish. And so the tofu is going to break up a little bit, but once you see that your beef is completely cooked, then you are done. So
Looks fabulous.
I've made my rice already, and I'm just going to have this over rice. And you should, and this is how I cook. I mean, I cook to taste. I salt to taste, so I'm going to taste it. It's good. But I'm going to add a little more soy sauce. And because in Palm Springs, there are no Chinese grocery stores, I couldn't get black bean sauce. So I'm just going to use soy sauce and garlic as my major spices, which is fine. But if you go to Fresh 99, you can get fermented black bean sauce, and that is delicious over in this dish as well.
Have you ever lived in outside the U.S. in your childhood?
I lived in France. I lived in Germany a little bit. I lived in, I was born in Taiwan.
You were born in Taiwan.
That's what I lived with. I lived there in 2003, 2004 with my son when I had a Fulbright. The thing about being in Taiwan is there's so many good restaurants and food and eating out is so cheap. Most Chinese moms are also really busy, so they don't cook that much. This is the secret. All right, I'm done because I see that my ground beef has cooked all the way through. I tasted it. I think the salt is good. So now I'm going to turn it off in my induction cooker, and I'm done. That was so easy.
Great. That was so easy, but it looks yummy.
It does look yummy, doesn't it? And it's super nourishing too. And so I'm going to remove this from the cooker and I already have my rice. I'm going to serve this rice. But the thing about a Chinese meal, as everyone knows, is that you should have more than one dish. And I'm kind of lame. I only have this dish, and you should always have a soup. Especially in winter when it's cold, it's really nice to have a soup. So I'm going to bring in my soup today. So this is a dish that I often crave in wintertime. My grandmother's spare rib soup. If you don't live in an area with a Chinese butcher like Ranch 99, you can go get a rack of ribs and cut them up, put them in about 7 liters of water like I did. So it's like 3 pounds of ribs that I cut up. I put them in 7 liters of water in this big cook pot with some fresh ginger that I'm not going to serve, and some vinegar, salt, and pepper to taste. The key to this, making this really clear, delicious broth, because it's really chic now to talk about beef broth, is to take off the foam while you're cooking. That's like the most labor-intensive part of this dish, or maybe cutting things up. But my grandmother had to cook for a family of 8. They didn't have a lot of money. And so the cuts of pork that she would use would be the cuts of pork that the butcher probably didn't want. And I actually talked to my friend, I was like, it's the rib, it's the fat part of the rib. So I'm so Chinese, I'm actually showing you. But she would take the worst cuts of meat and make the most delicious dishes, because I think this is the most delicious soup. It's actually really hard to get in a Chinese restaurant because people think of it as being too humble.
I see.
I could tell. It's just not special, but I think it's so simple, it's so healthy, and it's very chic now to eat bone broth. So it's like a bone broth that's actually incredibly clear, because I spent the labor of taking off the foam. And I'm going to finish it. Oopsies. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to finish it with cilantro and these red turnips that I got at the farmer's market. Now, what people usually use when they're cooking, making this dish, that what my grandmother used was daikon. Do you know what that is? The big Chinese turnips?
All right. Okay. Now I know. I understand. I didn't know how they were called.
Yeah, so if I were in Irvine, I would go to Ranch 99, I would get daikon, and I was here in Palm Springs without a lot of Chinese restaurants nearby, and Chinese groceries nearby. So I went to the farmer's market and I got this incredibly beautiful turnip, right? That is the Japanese radish, the red radish.
Right.
And I didn't want to make the soup all pink today, so I cooked the radish separately. But normally when you make this dish, about 10 minutes before it finishes, you put the daikon in.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna put this in now. I cooked this already separately, and it's going to make my soup kind of pink, which is unusual. But here's the other thing about Chinese cooking is it's always great. It's always really good for innovation. And it's always about like making do with what you have. And in this anthropological way, bricolage is really big, like improvising, figuring out what you can make with what you have. And also making things from poor cuts of meat, making things as delicious as possible. So within Chinese cooking, there's a lot of room for improvisation if you know what the tastes are.
That's
if
great.
you know what taste you want to achieve. I don't know if that's the case in other cuisines. I don't know.
Well, certainly in Italian cuisine, it's like that. It's very open to improvisation. It's open, and many recipes that are quite delicious are made out of the, maybe not the best cuts of meat, or some dishes had a very poor origin, and but still they are delicious.
They're delicious, right?
So,
I think all like peasant cooking is like that. And if you really know what a peasant cuisine is, I'm not saying like make up anything and just do crazy stuff. You really have to know what the tastes are, and then you can improvise from that area. That's why I feel like a lot of cooking shows, they fetishize like having all the perfect right ingredients and being, super prepared, or being Martha Stewart-esque. I think that takes us away from the traditions of cooking that have to do with our grandmother's kitchens or our childhood tastes and smells that we can recreate. Maybe people who want to have cooking as a specialized technique would find this way of cooking, not good. But I find that it's like the most profound exploration of memory for me.
I do agree completely with you. I always say when I demo a dish that it's not a fixed protocol, so it's not that nothing can be changed, because there are so many external constraints, right? Depends where you're cooking, the kind of products that you can get, but also the kind of temperature, humidity in the air. It's very different to cook in Palm Springs or in Palm Desert, which is near Palm Springs, and Irvine. The humidity in the air is completely different. And so there are a lot of other factors that one needs to take into account. So I always say that's more like knowing how to do things and then changing according to the context and the necessity of the moment.
Yeah, and I'm
glad that we agree.
Yeah, and it's this beautiful kind of creativity that you can find with the understanding the ingredients that you encounter. If you have that like basic understanding of what a dish should be. And like I went to the farmer's market and I found these beautiful Japanese radishes. And I know that radish and turnip and the Chinese turnip or daikon are very close in taste. So when I saw them, I was like, okay, I need to have them because I'm going to integrate them into this dish.
And I don't know whether it's the same for you, but for me, for my husband, that has always been outside Italy for the best part of his life, it's always been cooking. It's always been based on memory, and then on adapting that to whatever was available in a different country. There might not be the ingredients that we would have used if in Italy, right? And I guess that for you, it's the same. You are basing your recipes on memory and then adjusting to what you can find around you. Right. And it says something about being, in some sense, an immigrant, even if certainly you are not by now. But
That's right.
The origins, the cultural origins.
That's absolutely right. And the thing about my grandmother was she was an immigrant or an exile herself because she was from northwestern China, which is Xi'an, and she went with the nationalist troops to Taiwan. So she had to adapt her very northern Chinese ways of cooking to a tropical island. And she had to adapt to cooking for a family of 8. And she was the youngest daughter in a family where she felt very taken care of all the time. So I think she was learning how to cook for her family as she was having her family, having her children. So I always really liked that aspect of her approach to things, but she was very nostalgic for northwestern China. So now I'm very nostalgic for her version of Chinese cooking from northwestern China in Taiwan.
Actually, you know what? I've been in Xi'an in 2007. And so I have very fond memories because we ended up there in the middle of the summer when there was a local festivity. I don't remember exactly what, and there were people dancing on the streets. So we were mingling and dancing with them.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And it's been
so that's a real local Chinese flavor. People dancing in the street. That's really cool. So I'm going to finish this. I'm going to finish the soup like this. Oh, here's the other thing is that I made it sound like so simple. I just put the spare ribs in. I just slow cooked it. I took off the foam. But the other thing I did was I salted it to taste. So if you ask me like, hey, Catherine, how much salt did you put in there? I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. Like, I find it very American to be like, I put 2 teaspoons of salt in here. I don't know how much salt I put in here. Here's my salt shaker. I just salted it. I tasted it. I cooked, I salted again. Finally, I achieved the right level. And I don't know how much salt I put in. So sorry again. I'm so sorry.
Well, people will have to figure it out according to their taste.
I did slice 4 slices of fresh ginger in here. I don't recommend anyone eating that ginger, take it out. But what I will do is I'll serve it and I'll show you like, so there's the fresh ginger. I'm gonna take that out. We're not gonna use that. And then I'm going to show you how, well, now because of the red turnips, it has a red tinge to the soup. But what I really wanted to show was how clear the broth is because I took off that foam on top. And I think like all that fancy cooking that people do with foam that El Bulli does, for instance, I feel like it must have been all inspired by watching our grandmothers' mothers take off foam from meat stock. Yes. Because that foam is so delicate. And then you throw it away normally or give it to your dogs. But I feel like all those fancy chefs that cook with foam, they must have had grandmothers who also just spent a lot of time taking foam off the top to achieve this level of clarity. And then what I'm going to do is I have fresh cilantro, and I'm going to put cilantro on here. And I'm going to add a little more of the clear broth. And there you have it.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I can almost smell it.
I'm going to taste it.
Imagine the smell of it.
I'm going to taste it for you to tell you how it turned out really nicely. I would say I need a little more salt. So I still have a pot. Got my salt in here. Here we go. What I was saying, I just salt to taste. And what I was saying to my friend as I was cooking this is, I really think it's important to get the salt levels right because it's not customary in Chinese cuisine, in Chinese cooking, or to have like salt at the table for soup.
Nice.
If you have to put salt on your soup, that kind of means your cook fucked up. Oh, messed up.
Messed up. Okay, it's okay. Beep.
Just beat me up.
I
I
see.
say that first.
That's an interesting tradition. I mean, it's not in other culture traditions. It's perfectly fine to add salt at the table, but I can see why the rationale behind this way of thinking. It's great to know. Thank you so much
It's
for
just-
this. It's
Oh,
wonderful.
you're welcome. You're welcome. So now we're ready to eat here. And if anyone has any questions or anything about these recipes, they know where to find me. I'm at UCI. But thank you for having me on.
It's been
This was
lovely
great.
to have you. I wish I could be there with you to taste these wonderful
No.
dishes. The aroma, the smell, the texture of everything, and also it's really comforting, and we all need a little bit of comfort right now.
We do. And I promise you that when we all can eat it together again, I'll make this dish for you in real life. Because the best part of making it is actually sharing it.
That's
Because as you
right.
can see, it's a very big pot. It's not the kind of food you make for one person.
Absolutely. So so long, and thank you again, Catherine, for being with us, and goodbye, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, Annalisa. Take care. Buon appetito.